I've been wanting to make this video for quite a while. I had actually watched these videos before upgrading to my g5-01. I'll say the things I found were concerning. It held me off buying one for a long time, probably over a year, and I just wasn't a dead set because I'd seen reviews and they just put them off, which is unfortunate. I've got there now. There is videos out there, unboxings and people making videos after they've used the hoods for an extended period of time, and then they've found issues and things that they think could or should have been done better. So we will run over things that have been said and maybe haven't been said. But yeah, to start with, this is my 9100 FX. This is probably one of the better ones because it actually has, you can't maybe see, but it has the XXI lens, so it's more true color. It still has the metal springs, which they don't make anymore. Still has the original face seal that goes up over your head, which they don't make anymore. It isn't actually, although it's scuffed and it's a bit shiny where it's been well used, it is in very good condition. I ended up buying this off eBay. This is not my first one. This is actually a spare I bought off eBay. I have another one for my work. Yeah, so I essentially waited until I found a good deal on eBay so that if I didn't like it, it was a few £100 that I could maybe sell on instead of £700-800, maybe £1,000 to buy one that would be new or like new maybe. What I will say is a lot of people are bashing these hoods, saying things like they were cheaply made. They don't feel as good quality as a 9000, which I understand. There is a small amount of that I do agree with, but I think to achieve what they've got here, I think it's acceptable, which I don't often agree with. But for the easiest thing to try and compare, taking this apart is a nightmare. You need tools, you need time, you do need a little bit of finesse, and you need patience. If you lose one of them, you're either not taking it apart, you're not getting it back together, or yeah. We will say the face seal in this is the best face seal out of all the 3M airfeds, in my personal opinion. It goes right over your head, it comes right up the side of here, so it's actually protecting you quite high up, right along the top. And the face seal has got plenty of space in it to be pulled around your head and your face. Unfortunately, the face seal in the G5 is probably its biggest letdown. It still works, obviously, but it is a letdown because it's not what you expect. What we'll do is, another thing we'll point out, because we need to take this off, removing the parts from this hood is a lot easier than removing the parts from the G5, the 9000 series hoods. That's as simple as it gets for taking it off. But as you can see, this gap here and that here, that basically means that the face seal isn't sealed because there's a great big gap in here. Realistically, this should probably come across the top, probably been secured with a Velcro and a button. Not Velcro, elastic and a button, like you'd find on, what would that be? Would have been an older ESAB hood. So yeah, as you can see, we've just pointed this out. To take off the attachments for the head, you've just got this little hook, the two tabs, and obviously the same on the other side, that little hook. Very simple to take off, and very good if you're actually going to maintain it and wash it. To take off this one, you've got this plastic tab here, obviously the same on this side, and I'll try and show you. If we look in the back of here, That's the inner shell. There's Velcro on that. So for you to attach it, there's a center point marked, or I use it as a center point on the inside of the hood, which you can't see, or will, yeah, you might see it. It is just there. See it right there? That is used to line, I use it to line up when you put them back on, but unfortunately it isn't perfect, and getting them back on is tricky. So when you think about it, you've got to tuck this over. It's got to fit in behind here, and if you get this off, or there's a crease or something doesn't fit right, when you're lifting this up and down, it rubs here, which is, you don't really want that to happen. Obviously with the shape of this, well, there's still nooks and crannies, spatter and things land on here. So if you're doing a lot of gouging, or you're doing a lot of positional welding, or inside grillages, or tight confined spaces where there's nowhere for the spatter and sparks to go, it lands on here. This is my second one because all the stitching had melted. And then, as it goes with most of the Speedglas stuff, it's really not cheap. We will say that's another thing that needed updating, because there is no structural integrity to this whatsoever, and I do mean almost none. This has always been a bit of a scutter, because you need to get your fingers in the back of the hood to get lens out, but it's a little bit dirty. It's not been used in a while, but yeah. So this is the XXI, as you can see. Purchased this a few years ago. The auto on feature was good. What I will say is there was a better feature for this, if we'll slide this out gently, that these clear lenses slip in behind, and then they're actually in behind and in a little recess all around, so they're a lot better protected. We'll show you what they're like on the G5, but the battery's probably dead in this. Yeah, it is. But yeah, this is a quite an expensive upgrade. I think it'd be £250 for this. Obviously, I then sold on my XX lens to offset the cost of it a little bit. But even with that upgrade, the XXI, it doesn't compete with even the TW lens. It's in the G5. It's just not comparable. But we will say, because I've briefly said about taking these apart not being good, if you need to replace something as trivial as the hinge spring inside here, so you've also got a Torx here. The other Torx is right there. So to get that out, you need to undo this, which I'll show you. Right. And then you've essentially got to put those two tabs up and over each other at the same time as doing this ones. You obviously have got to undo this Torx to let the hinge spring drop down. Then you've got to pivot this around and try and get a little screwdriver around it, push them away. There may be an easier way, but for some reason I've never found it. What I will say is you've got to be careful, is this sharp corner's right here. Too much force, when you're pivoting this around, you can actually crack from this edge out, or likewise this edge out. And obviously you've basically lost all structural integrity to the hood, because now it's not one piece. It's not great. Taking it apart just to do something as trivial as that spring hinge is very, very poor. But I will say is, some people might have already gotten this little pin or this little tab. That tab is the locking mechanism for the tilt or the angle the hood rests at in comparison to the headband. So as you can see, that little tab there is maybe 6mm long, 2mm thick. So if you're going to be a little bit silly and you snap that off, yeah, you need to buy a new shell. So we'll point out some more negatives, because I think these hoods are very highly regarded as better than the G5s. But when you look at this, yet again, if you're in a tight space, welding in grillages, or just in somewhere where you're doing overheads wouldn't be a good one to do. If you're doing something that required a lot of burning in a confined space, or air arc gouging, plasma cutting, if you imagine you're looking, your sight is going down, you're welding here, the sparks are going up, and then at the top of here, this is all open, which means the sparks are going into the back of the lens, which I find a lot of these inside have got melted bits of BBs and spatter all inside it. Just due to the nature of the angle your hood's got to be at, and most times it's just open, so it's a bit silly. But yeah, I'm trying to think if we've missed anything. People will say that this is a stronger hood, which I'll agree. I have abused this and it's held up all because of this lip here. And yeah, this lip is absolutely solid, but let's say you laid it down on a bench and it was to break. Yep, you've guessed it, you're buying a whole new hood. I can't remember what these would retail at. I would assume they're between 150 to 200 pounds to get a new shell, and you probably don't get very much with it. But I think we'll have covered most things. A lot of things were good about the hood. These little like suede leathery patches were good. If you didn't wear chromers or gouging hoods, they would actually protect hair being pulled out from inside your head. A negative aspect was obviously, if you imagine your viewpoint from here is probably still between 30 and 50 mil back, depending on how you've got your headband set. This point here is probably another 25 millimeters from the edge, and then you've got this. So as you get into tight spaces, it's not actually that good. Also, the width of this hood is enormous. But yeah, we've covered the pros and cons, hopefully them all. Yeah, I think we're good. We won't bash it too much because I had that hood a long time and it was my very first one. And if I was stuck, I probably would go back to it. But I think it's done its time, and it's something that I'll probably just keep for the sake of it. Right, next one. We'll go for the negatives because we've already showed you the face seal being the largest negative. I do think that this was a little bit of a strange move. It made sense to a certain extent, but if you've got an extended head protector like I have my other hood, this was no longer a concern. This is obviously a lot lighter than the old one. It would be susceptible to damage, but I have not damaged mines in the year and a half, 2 years I've had it. So first thing we'll say, stripping this hood down is a lot easier, and I would say it's probably the biggest benefit for this hood, minus the actual welding lens itself. To take off this, so we've discussed how the other one's taken apart. We take off these. Right, one. So let's say your hood isn't going up and down very smoothly. It is jamming, sticking, or you think you've broken a hinge in it. What we do is we just pop these out and this lifts out. Should lift out. There you go. That's it. Simple as that. And if you come to replace the spring hinge in it, the mechanism, you've obviously got it here. You've actually got a diagram right here. So to do it wrong should be very difficult. And obviously I think the way these are designed, I personally think that they take a lot less strain than the old ones. I don't think it's as likely to break. Obviously this is a TW, disregard the stew. It's been sitting for a while. You'll notice that it has actually got Bluetooth, so the Bluetooth is actually for pairing to the 3M app. I did it when I first got them, and it was more out of them being second hand. I was curious because I wanted to know how much welding they'd actually done. But apart from that, not something I actually use. Obviously you've got a shadify for cutting up to 13, but if I grab one second, right, this is my other hood, so this has actually got a VC. Now if you notice, you've got a cut for, you're cutting a shade 5 and you're going from 8 to 14, and you've got a variable color also with Bluetooth. What I will say is I would normally have set my 9100 at probably a shade 10, and if I was gouging 11, but on this I found myself gouging maybe up as high as 12 or 13. The clarity you're achieving with this is absolutely phenomenal. I always have it on the blue. The green's okay. The red is a very strange thing to have. The red tint makes it, what I think, difficult for routing, because you're obviously visualizing the molten metal sinking into a root face, and the prep. How you distinguish, I don't know. I think to myself that the color you're seeing in the pool is very important to see as a real color. The red seems to throw you off, whether you believe it's too hot or something doesn't feel right. But it doesn't seem a very natural color to be viewing welding in. Blue or green, but the red's very, very strange. It's hard to actually put your finger on what isn't good about it, but I tried to route in pipes a few years ago. I did about 2 inches and stopped because it felt bizarre. The next thing we'll actually cover, since we've got this off, is people were saying that they didn't see a benefit in this, and what this is a control for the directional airflow for the hood, which sounds fancy, but it's well packaged inside the hood and you don't really notice it. But I will say, if you're working in a cold workshop, especially up here in the northeast of Scotland, if you've got an unheated workshop and you've got your air set to come from the bottom of the hood onto your face, it is terrible. I think that the air inlet tube for this is horrific, because it all comes out of one place, even with the plastic. Oh, if I we'll show you. Even with this part in here, that air's coming out of here and hitting you straight in the face. If you're doing 12-hour shifts with air hitting your face, you end up going home with a sore head, chapped lips, and a runny nose. Obviously, if you're in a warmer climate, you don't have the same issues, but people said they didn't notice a difference while using this, which I'll disagree. I think this is a fantastic thing to have. If you're feeling too hot, obviously the up and down makes a difference, but not huge. This is the one that's brilliant. This is hitting the visor, and obviously flick it across. That is actually aiming towards your face, and you've got the option whether it comes from the air comes down or the air goes up. So I personally think it was a very, very good idea. What we'll do is we'll put it back together and then we'll show you the next part, so I don't want this thing falling to bits on me. As you can see, this is a lot better. We also notice these buttons are actually flush fitting, which means that they don't obscure you from doing anything. Whereas it sounds silly, that's maybe only 7mm thick, but you'd be surprised how much times you'd sneak into a space and your hood would get stuck and it'd be almost lifted off your head. And when you think how skinny that threads are, it's not really what you want happening. So we did speak about the size of this hood, but if you actually, you're not seeing that. If you look at the angle of this hood, this here, from this point to this point, you're lucky if that's maybe 12mm. So when you're actually wanting to get in close to something, you haven't got the front of the hood obscuring your view, and actually, not obscuring it, but fouling whatever you're welding against. So if you're looking in close to something, you're a lot less likely to actually touch against this compared to this part here. Yeah, it's a lot more compact. If you actually look at the width of this, I have actually measured them in the past. No, we'll just do it now, because there's no point in me saying it and not that there and then not showing. So if I feed this through this side, it's outside that button, you're looking at 11 inches or 280mm. But if we go like this, and we are edge of there, you're sitting at 255. So that is, it may not seem a lot, but you're probably over 30mm, which is a huge saving on the width of the hood. The hood actually feels a lot more balanced and central on your head. I believe they're roughly the same weight, but the balance on it is completely different. Another thing we'll say, we obviously picked up on this little tab in here, and what we're going to say is that has been improved greatly here. If you can see, that is tilt angle, so obviously that's the stopper at the hood rests at. So all that wee ribs there, that's one half of it. You look at this side, you've got 3 tabs there, and because they're actually fixed on the bottom and on the side, you should struggle to break them. If you do, it's malicious. But at least on this, you can actually buy these parts separately, to my knowledge, and obviously I think you might be able to buy that separately. What people did say on these was cheap was this part. People thought that, or I suppose I agree to a certain extent as well, that this is very flimsy and cheap, which I understand where you're coming from. I think their opinions aren't silly. They are true. It does feel cheap compared to this, but at least if you were to damage this, which I have, it cost me £20 or £21 to replace. So I didn't really have that much of a cry about it. But obviously, if I broken that, I'm buying a new hood. We will say one more thing. Removing the face seal from this is an absolute dawdle. You take off that cord there, and you do the same with here. And in there, there's a little pin in that piece of cloth. You pull it off, and once you've done both sides, when you pull this forward, that bit of plastic at the bottom, but since you pull that up, and once that's out of the way, the plastic goes into the corners here, and you pull that out, and that is as simple as it gets. It means that you could actually change most of the parts on your dinner or your first break. It doesn't take long at all. The stripping down of this hood is probably one of its best features. Try to think if we've got anything else to cover. Obviously, if you were coming to buy this hood, the only part that isn't compatible or directly compatible is this grinding lens, because obviously this bit's different. The outer lenses, the inner lens protectors, as long as you're putting an XX or an XXI from a 9000 on it, they will actually fit on here. The airflows and the pre-filters are obviously the same as well. Everything else, completely different. I thought this myself. I know you cannot retrofit one of these into here. It would be good because you obviously get a happy medium between both the hoods, but yeah, I've checked it and you can't do it. You'd end up butchering something and finishing it off a hot glue gun. A small buyer's guide or a bit of advice. For some reason, there are still people on eBay selling these 9000 hoods for very strong money. These can still be seen upwards of £300, maybe even £500, £600, and for like new ones, £70, £100. I purchased this off eBay. It cost me, I think it was $340 for just the hood, which, yeah, hypothetically was probably a bit expensive, but at the end of the day, after a few beers, it didn't seem like a bad idea. I have bought a few of these. I'll often keep a lookout and buy them for people on their behalf. I have picked some up from anything between £270 to $340, $350. Most of them are like new, and they just need taken home, cleaned, little niggly bits fixed on them. I think the average money I've paid for these is about £300. Some of them come with the 3M bag, multiple chargers, the spares. I have actually picked up, I have picked up some of these at crazy deals, but maybe it's a bias because I'm not often looking for these. But for some reason, you can pick these up cheaply. If you wanted an XXI lens, you're probably still going to pay north of £200 off eBay. But if you wanted, obviously not that one, it would be a TW. If you wanted a VC lens like this has, you can actually pick up the lens for £320 off eBay, brand new. This was actually bought, so I bought the shell off eBay brand new, and I bought the lens also brand new off eBay. So I put together, as you can see, this a g5-03 Pro, and I think it all in all cost me £220 or $225 all delivered. So that is actually a bargain. And if I was doing intricate TIG work, this is what I would go back to. I did actually have a 9000 hood for doing TIG work, but obviously this has been upgrading it. I think we're going to leave it at that. Whether I do more videos or not, I don't know, but this is a video I did want to do for quite a while. I hope I've covered everything, explained everything as well as I can. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe. I'm not going to ask you to like the video. This is for information only. Do with it as you will. I'm hoping this might save people a bit of time. Yeah, just be careful when you're buying them, because some people like to rip things off them. Don't disclose what's missing from the hoods. You buy the hood and all of a sudden you'll find that this face seal is a bit knackered, but I've found these for sale without the face seal, and then the description says that it's mint condition, ready to use. So just be careful. Study pictures and compare a lot of them, and hopefully you don't get scammed. You don't get ripped off with these, because it is easy to happen. So have a good one. Hope you've enjoyed it.